archaeologists for centuries. But in the case of the Khmer, we may have found a key that unlocks an important piece of this mystery. Angkor Archaeological Park includes about 70 ruins in an area that's roughly 80 square miles. Simon Warwick tells me that in one of these temples, there's an obscure but significant carving.
Okay, this is the place that gives us a clue as to how the temple was built. Now you see these guys up here?
Yeah.
They've got a horizontal beam with a lever hanging off it and then a block. And these guys are pushing the block backwards and forwards, rubbing it on the one below.
It's fascinating that there's a clue right here. Would it be possible to build something similar to this to try out the method?
Why not? Let's have a go.
To test out how the Khmer made their stones fit together so perfectly, we're going to try and build a machine similar to the one we saw on the temple wall.
Hey, Simon. Everything just as ordered.
Everything
We're
ready.
working from a sketch based on the bas-relief we saw earlier.
Got all the beams.
Our laboratory is a local masonry workshop where modern artisans make recreations of the temple carvings. The Cambodians who work here have never done anything like this, but they're curious and willing to help.
It's basically a cross beam with a lever.
That's right.
This will hopefully allow us to lift more weight a lot more easily.
Well, what it'll do is it'll take the weight off the top block so that it's easier to move it backwards and forwards.
Okay.
We get right to the business of building the supports for the crossbeam. But the 95-degree tropical heat makes everything a challenge.
What's he saying?
He said, foreigner a bit slow, do you need some help?
How do you say foreigner a bit hot?
Barang kedauna.
Yeah. Allow the master.
My new Cambodian friends generously lend me a hand.
Ones?
With the supports up, we hoist the crossbeam. Our project is starting to take shape.
Yeah.
We need to tie the framework nice and tight. It's going to support a lot of weight.
All right. So there's 200 pounds at least, huh? How do we move the stone?
My head.
That way first.
Yeah.
Now we're ready to muscle the first rock into position. Once the bottom rock is in place, we attach the lever.
All right.
Very well hung, as they say.
Yes, this is very well hung.
To make it easier to move the top block into position, we drill holes and insert pegs into the rock. Simon says this is exactly how the Angkorians did it.
The side ones are for lifting and the top ones will help us rub it backwards and forwards.
Okay.
Okay? But the important thing is that this enables us to lift it without having a rope underneath it.
So by not having any ropes underneath, that's what would allow them to get the nice, smooth contact.
In every civilization in the world, they've always found a system for lifting a block without having a rope underneath it. Because when you put a 10-ton block down on a building, you don't want to have to pull out the rope afterwards.
That's it.
Woo! We just lifted 400 pounds.
The big moment has come. We had a plan, we executed it, and it looks just like the diagram.
Ready, guys? Up.
Now let's see if it works.
This feels really uneven.
It doesn't, it's banging the corners.
Simon's idea was to use a straight back and forth grinding motion to smooth the rocks. That doesn't work so well. So Shatri, the shop owner, suggests a new way to go.
Now I'm definitely feeling more rubbing
It's
this
feeling
way.
more like it's grinding.
Yeah, it feels more like it. It feels much more even and smooth.
Wow,
It's
yeah.
an ancient version of sandpaper.
After 5 minutes of grinding, we're ready to see our handiwork.
Take it off, Tree.
Down. Okay.
We got a sandy mess there. What do you think's underneath?
I think it's smooth.
You do? Yeah, this feels nice and smooth right here. Only 2 million more to go and we could have our own temple. Really have to admire ingenuity like that and appreciate just how hard they had to work.
When we return to the temples, I find myself noticing details I never saw the first time.
You know, I'm starting to see these holes everywhere. And now I realize just how important they were to put this whole place together.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's great about this. As you look around, you see more and more and more.
So much to see.
Simon takes me to see the two most exquisite carvings at Angkor Wat. After our successful experiment, he says I can now appreciate why the Angkorians labored so hard to fit their blocks perfectly.
Well, this place wasn't so much planned, carved, and assembled the way places are in Europe. This was planned, assembled, and then carved afterwards.
So essentially, we're walking inside of one giant sculpture.
Right, now have a look at this. This will give you an idea of what I'm talking about.
Ah, this is beautiful.
This, for me, is one of the most perfect pieces of carving in the temple.
It's absolutely beautiful. And you can actually see the fine seams where they've assembled it right here.
These are the joints. You see, she's not made of one single block. She's made of 4 different blocks.
How difficult is it to carve multiple blocks stacked on top of each other?
If these were just stacked together with a mortar joint, the way we do in Europe, you wouldn't be able to carve over it, because it would snap. The fact that they've made a perfect razor contact joint means that these 2 blocks act like one single block. And the pressure between these 2 blocks means that you can run your chisel over and you don't snap off the edge.
And I imagine you probably only get one shot because it's already built.
I can't imagine how scary it must have been to carve this. If you snap off that nose while you're carving, where do you go from there? And you probably got one less stone carver, because I reckon the king would.
What's more, Simon tells me that every little detail in the temple contributes to an overarching cosmic plan. The Khmer regarded their rulers as gods on earth, and this temple was built to represent the Hindu universe in miniature. Its towers symbolized Mount Meru, the celestial home of the gods, and its huge moat, the vast cosmic oceans. But here on Earth, their universe ultimately came crashing down. What went wrong? Angkor Wat. It may be the most beautiful religious monument ever built, and the most mystifying. Completed in 1145, the crown jewel of the Khmer Empire was inexplicably deserted 2 centuries later. The remote location and the relentless Cambodian jungle hid all the region's temples for over 400 years. They were the stuff of legend until 1860, when a French naturalist named Henri Mouot came upon them by accident. When his report hit Paris, these temples became all the rage across Europe, with people talking wildly about a new lost world.
I imagine this is what it must have been like when Henri Mouot stumbled upon Angkor Wat. The jungle had reclaimed the stone temple. As you can see, the tree just digs its roots into any openings it can find and grasps onto the stone, creating a silent but deadly slow-motion wrestling match. And given time, the tree always wins and destroys its host. It's brutal, yet beautiful.
Mouot and other early European explorers didn't believe that ancestors of the natives they met could have constructed these fantastic temples. They credited an unknown race of master builders, but they couldn't have been more wrong. To get a better sense of all the Khmer's accomplishments, I'm meeting up with Damien Evans, the deputy director of something called the Gap.
Damien!
Hunter, how's it going?
Hey, good, how you doing?
Good, mate. Come on up the stairs, this way.
GAP
All right,
stands
beach
for the
upstairs.
Greater Angkor Project, where archaeologists use sophisticated aerial imaging techniques to peer deeply into Cambodia's past.
So this here's the very first radar image of Angkor, taken by NASA from a space shuttle in 1994.
So I'm guessing that right here is the temple complex, right?
That's right. Actually, that little square in the middle there is Angkor Wat. So you can see it shows us for the first time that Angkor was absolutely huge.
Next, Damien shows me a new image created by AIRSAR, which stands for Airborne Synthetic Aperture Radar. Its longer wavelengths penetrate the forest canopy to expose much more than meets the eye.
It shows us that Angkor was more than just a collection of temples. It shows us that it was a vast inhabited landscape which sprawled over more than 1,000 square kilometers of this area.
What is this reservoir right here?
That one there is the West Barai. It's a reservoir that's 8 kilometers long, 2 kilometers wide, designed to trap water coming down from the north during the dry season and distribute it throughout the south. This can be quite
This
hard to
map
interpret
reveals a
with the radar
remarkable